What's up, guys? Mr. Al sliding back in here for another Old Dead Famous People Showcase, another ODFP showcase. And in today's ODFP showcase, we're going to be talking about Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, an army officer who founded an independent Republic of Turkey out of the ruins of the Ottoman Empire. He was born in 1881 and served as Turkey's first president from 1923 until his death in 1938, implementing reforms that rapidly secularized and westernized the country. Under his leadership, the role of Islam in public life shrank drastically. European-style law codes came into being, and the office of the Sultan was abolished, as well as new language and dress requirements becoming mandated. Now, during the early tenure of Ataturk, Turkey was also rapidly adopting many democratic practices. However, Ataturk at times stifled opposition with an authoritarian hand. Now, Mustafa, who became Mustafa Kemal as a teenager, and then Mustafa Kemal Ataturk later in life, was born in 1881 in Thessaloniki, Greece, which at this point in time was part of the Ottoman Empire. His family was middle class, Turkish speaking, and Muslim. A good student, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk had attended a series of military schools, including the War College in Istanbul. He was then stationed in Syria and Palestine for a few years, and in 1911 and 1912, the hard-drinking Mustafa Kemal fought against the Italians in Libya. Now, during World War I, in the years 1914 to 1918, the Ottoman Empire allied itself with Germany and Austria-Hungary and formed what became known as the Central Powers. By this point in time, the aging empire had lost almost all of its territory in both Europe and Africa. Moreover, the so-called Young Turk Revolution of 1908 had stripped autocratic powers from the Sultan and ushered in an era of parliamentary government. In 1915, Mustafa Kemal distinguished himself throughout the nearly year-long Gallipoli Peninsula campaign, in which he helped stop a large force of both British and French troops from taking Istanbul. He was soon promoted from colonel to brigadier general and was sent to fight in eastern Turkey, Syria, and Palestine. Now, during this point in the war, around 1916-ish, we're going to see an estimated 1.5 million Armenians die, as well as others being expelled during the war and its aftermath. But our boy Mustafa Kemal had not been linked to the perpetration of the genocide. Under a punitive post-war peace treaty that was signed in August of 1920, the Allied powers stripped all Arab provinces from the Ottoman Empire and provided for an independent Armenia as well as an autonomous Kurdistan. They also put the Greeks in charge of a region surrounding Smyrna and asserted economic control over what little country the Ottoman Turks had left. Now, however, Mustafa Kemal had also organized in response to this an independence movement based in Ankara. And the goal of this independence movement was to end foreign occupation of the Turkish-speaking areas and to stop them from being partitioned. Now, when the Sultan's government in Istanbul found out about what Mustafa was doing, they sentenced him to death. This attempted turned out to be a failure. This was a failure because Mustafa Kemal already had turned out a ton of military and popular support. And with the help of money and weapons from Soviet Russia, guys, his troops eventually started to push back. They crushed the Armenians in the east. It forced the French and the Italians to withdraw from the south. He then turned his attention to the Greeks, who had wreaked havoc on the Turkish population during their march to within 50 miles of Ankara. In August and September of 1921, with Mustafa Kemal at the head of the army, the Turks stopped the Greek advance at the Battle of Sakarya. The following August, they launched an offensive that broke the Greek lines and sent them into a full-scale retreat all the way back to Smyrna on the Mediterranean Sea. A fire soon broke out in Smyrna, which, along with looting and rampaging Turkish soldiers, claimed the lives of thousands of Greek and Armenian residents. Roughly 200,000 additional Greeks and Armenians were forced to evacuate on nearby Allied warships, never to return. Mustafa Kemal next threatened to attack Istanbul, which was being occupied by the British and other Allied powers. Rather than fight the British, they agreed to negotiate terms for a new peace treaty, and they sent invitations to both the Sultan's government in Istanbul as well as Mustafa Kemal's government in Ankara. But before the peace conference could begin, the Grand National Assembly in Ankara passed a resolution declaring that the Sultan's rule had already ended and had dissolved. fearful for his life, the last Ottoman Sultan actually fled his palace in a British ambulance. And a new peace treaty was then signed in July of 1923 that recognized an independent Turkish state. That October, the Grand National Assembly proclaimed that the Republic of Turkey and the elected Mustafa Kemal as its first president. Even before he became president, though, Greece actually agreed to send 380,000 Muslims to Turkey in exchange for over 1 million Greek Orthodox practitioners. We are also going to see, under Mustafa Kemal, the forced immigration of Armenians continue. Now, although Turkey was now homogeneously Muslim, Mustafa Kemal disposed the Caliph, the theoretical successor to the Prophet Muhammad and the spiritual leader of the worldwide Muslim community. He also closed all religious courts and schools and prohibited the wearing of headscarves among public sector employees. He also abolished the Ministry of Canon Law, lifted a ban on alcohol, adopted the Gregorian calendar in place of the Islamic calendar, made Sunday a day of rest instead of Friday, changed the Turkish alphabet from Arabic letters to Roman ones, mandated that the call to prayer be in Turkish rather than Arabic, and even forbade the wearing of, yes, fez hats. Mustafa Kemal's government would later expose industrialization and adopt new law codes based on European models as well. He was quoted as saying that the civilized world is far ahead of us. He told an audience in October of 1926, "We have no choice but to catch up." And that's exactly what happened here in Turkey. 8 years later, he eventually required all Turks to choose a surname. He selected Ataturk, literally meaning Father Turk, as his own. And by that time, Ataturk's government had joined the League of Nations, improved literacy rates, and even gave women the right to vote. Though in practice, he essentially was using and imposing a single-party rule. He also closed opposition newspapers, suppressed leftist workers' organizations, and bottled up any attempts at Kurdish autonomy. Now, on November 10th, 1938, Ataturk, who never had any children, died in his bedroom in Istanbul. He was later replaced by İsmet İnönü, prime minister during most of Ataturk's rule, who continued his policies of secularization and westernization. Now, even though Ataturk retains iconic status in Turkey today, in fact, insulting his memory is actually a crime, Islam has actually reemerged as both a social and political force. And with that being stated, guys, that's all I have for this ODFP showcase. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Mr. Ronald signing off. We'll see you guys later. Take care.